The Ramjso Ironworks, which are now closed down, were not so long ago a large plant with smelter, rolling mill and forge. All these are stages in metal production. In the summertime, long lines of heavily loaded barges and scows, that is, flatboats, slid down the canal, which led to a large inland lake. And in the wintertime, the roads near the mill were black from all the coal dust which sifted or scattered down from the big charcoal crates. During one of the long dark evenings just before Christmas, the master smith and his helper sat in the dark forge near the furnace, waiting for the pig iron which had been put in the fire to be ready to put on the anvil. Forge is like a dimly lit, soot-covered workshop of an iron mill. Okay? And pig iron is like impure iron. Every now and then, one of them got up to stir the glowing mass with a long iron bar, returning in a few moments, dripping with perspiration or sweat, though, as was the custom, he wore nothing but a long shirt and a pair of wooden shoes. All the time, there were many sounds to be heard in the forge. The big bellows or devices used to move air groaned, and the burning coal cracked. The fire boy shoveled or pushed charcoal into the maw or mouth of the furnace with a great deal of clatter or noise. Outside roared the waterfall, and a sharp north wind whipped the rain against the brick-tiled roof. It was probably on account of all this noise that the blacksmith did not notice that a man had opened the gate and entered the forge until he stood close up to the furnace. Surely it was nothing unusual for poor vagabonds without any better shelter for the night to be attracted to the forge by the glow of light which escaped through the sooty panes, and to come to warm themselves in front of the fire. The blacksmith glanced only casually and indifferently at this intruder. He looked the way people of his type usually did, with a long beard, dirty, ragged, and with a bunch of rat traps dangling on his chest. He asked permission to stay, and the master blacksmith nodded a haughty or proud consent without honoring him with a single word. The tramp or footman did not say anything either. He had not come there to talk, but only to warm himself and sleep. In those days, the Ramjso iron mill was owned by a very prominent iron master, whose greatest ambition was to ship out good iron to the market. He watched both night and day to see that the work was done as well as possible. And at this very moment, he came into the forge on one of his nightly rounds of inspection. Naturally, the first thing he saw was the tall ragamuffin, or this ragged, disreputable person who had eased his way so close to the furnace that steam rose from his wet rags. The iron master did not follow the example of the blacksmiths, who had hardly deigned or considered to look at the stranger. In fact, the iron master walked close up to him, looked him over very carefully, then tore off his slouch hat or drooping hat to get a better view of his face. "Oh, but of course it is you, Nile-Ulof," he said. "How do you look?" The man with the rat traps had never before seen the iron master at Ramjso, and did not even know what his name was. But it occurred to him that if the fine gentleman thought he was an old acquaintance, he might perhaps throw him a couple of kroner. Therefore, he did not want to undeceive him all at once. "Yes, God knows things have gone downhill with me," he said. "You should not have resigned from the regiment," said the iron master. "That was the mistake. If only I still had been in the service at the time, it never would have happened. Well, now of course, you will come home with me. To go along up to the manor house and be received by the owner like an old regimental comrade or fellow, that, however, did not please the tramp. No, I could not think of it, he said, looking quite alarmed. He thought of the 30 kronor. To go up to the manor house would be like throwing himself voluntarily into the lion's den. He only wanted a chance to sleep here in the forge and then sneak away as inconspicuously or secretly as possible. The ironmaster assumed that he felt embarrassed because of his miserable clothing. Please don't think that I have such a fine home that you cannot show yourself there, he said. Elizabeth is dead, as you may already have heard. My boys are abroad, and there is no one at home except my oldest daughter and myself. We were just saying that it was too bad we didn't have any company for Christmas. Now, come along with me and help us make the Christmas food disappear a little faster. But the stranger said no, and again no, and the ironmaster saw that he must give in. It looks as though Captain Van Stale preferred to stay with you tonight, Storm, he said to the master blacksmith and turned on his heel. But he laughed to himself as he went away, and the blacksmith, who knew him, understood very well that he had not said his last word. It was not more than half an hour before they heard the sound of carriage wheels outside the forge, and a new guest came in. But this time it was not the ironmaster. He had sent his daughter, apparently hoping that she would have better powers of persuasion than he himself. She entered, followed by a valet or a male servant, carrying on his arm a big fur coat. She was not at all pretty, but seemed modest and quite shy. In the forge, everything was just as it had been earlier in the evening. The master blacksmith and his apprentice still sat on their bench, and iron and charcoal still glowed in the furnace. The stranger had stretched himself out on the floor and lay with a piece of pig iron under his head and his hat pulled down over his eyes. As soon as the young girl caught sight of him, she went up and lifted his hat. The man was evidently used to sleeping with one eye open. He jumped up abruptly and seemed to be quite frightened. My name is Edla Wilmanson, said the young girl. My father came home and said that you wanted to sleep here in the forge tonight. And then I asked permission to come and bring you home to us. I am so sorry, Captain, that you are having such a hard time. She looked at him compassionately with her heavy eyes, and then she noticed that the man was afraid. Either he has stolen something, or else he has escaped from jail, she thought, and added quickly, You may be sure, Captain, that you will be allowed to leave us just as freely as you came. Only please stay with us over Christmas Eve. She said this in such a friendly manner that the Rattrap peddler must have felt confidence in her. It would never have occurred to me that you would bother with me yourself, miss, he said. I will come at once. He accepted the fur coat which the valet handed him with a deep bow, threw it over his rags, and followed the young lady out to the carriage without granting the astonished blacksmith so much as a glance. But while he was riding up to the manor house, he had evil forebodings or predictions. Why the devil did I take that fellow's money? He thought. Now I am sitting in the trap and will never get out of it. Done with part 2. For part 3, follow my next video. Thank you. This is Tell a Tale with Heena.